call the meeting to order, November 24th of the Municipal Airport Authority. Happy early Thanksgiving week here, everybody. Let's see. Who,
Rick, can you hear us?
Rick,
Yes.
Stacy, all right.
is that John Cosgrove?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. I knew John Strand said he didn't think he'd make it, so, all right. Are there any changes or corrections to the November 10th, 2020 minutes? I just found one little thing that was a date, and that was it, so. It sounded like, and thank you for taking the meeting for me, Eric. It sounded like it was a very good meeting. Any changes or corrections? Okay, minutes stand approved as printed. Approve the airport vouchers totaling $98,346.64.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Airport vouchers be approved. Roll call vote.
Haugen,
Aye.
Engen,
Aye.
Cosgrove,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye. Approve the individual vouchers as follows. Mead and Hunt, $68,092.53, and Northern Improvement Company, $1,041,877.24. So if you look at the large one, that's for a lot of the cargo apron. Are there any questions that you'd like addressed?
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Approval of the vouchers A and B. Roll call vote.
Haugen,
Aye.
Engen,
Aye.
Cosgrove,
Aye.
Lind,
Yes.
Lynn.
Aye. Received the request for a Riviera Nexus Code G4 extension of East Side Terminal Office lease.
I have an email from Mark Cromack from Koji Riviera Nexus is what they're called now, for about 756 square feet of office space on the second floor of the terminal. They've requested a one-year extension starting December 1st through November 30, 2021. There was a 3% escalator in the lease rate. I think it goes to $9.55 a square foot, I believe. And we have the document ready to sign and circulate.
Anything unusual about it?
No.
Okay.
So moved. Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Can I just do a
Yep.
voice
Just a
vote?
voice vote.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign? Okay, motion carried. Number 5, ND PERS update.
I guess I can start. We had a small group meeting where Rick and Tammy and Sean attended with the city folks yesterday and had a discussion about the differences between plans. I felt it was a relatively good discussion, and from my end, what came out of it is that Jill Manette will bring forth a true comparison between the Fargo plan and the public employees plan. So we can see, if rule of 85, rule of 90, etc., how do they actually compare? And then what is in the best interest for the airport firefighters? And I guess with that, I would just welcome Tammy and Rick's, Sean's input.
Yeah, Stacy, there was a plan comparison provided by HR back in, I believe it was May of
May
this
12th.
year. I don't know that anything has changed. There was an item in that comparison that was sent in May that talked about the North Dakota PERS public safety plan, and the city's information indicated that the rule had changed from a rule of 85 to a rule of 90 effective January 1st of 2020. That was also stated during our conversation yesterday. I had a question mark by that before, so I contacted Chief Bush, and then I engaged Mary Jo Anderson at ND PERS, and she responded yesterday afternoon that the North Dakota PERS Public Safety Plan remains at Rule of 85. It did not change on January 1st for new hires. So it still remains at a rule of 85. I sent that email out this morning from Mary Jo, along with a chart comparison the chief got from the PERS website, and then that comparison chart that was provided to us back in May from there to hopefully correct that. One of the questions that we chatted about is that I don't believe the City of Fargo firefighters pay into Social Security. Is that something that you could check on, Stacy? And if they don't pay into Social Security, does that mean that when they retire, they do not receive Social Security benefits? I'm real curious about that, if that is the case that you can confirm. The reason being is that the City of Fargo had indicated that the multiplier for the fire department pension plan is 2.5. The North Dakota PERS public safety plan was lowered from 2 to 1.75 on January 1st. So the idea is that if our firefighters were to retire under that North Dakota public safety plan, they are paying into Social Security, even at a 1.75 multiplier with their Social Security. Is that better? So Fargo Fire isn't getting Social Security with a 2.5 multiplier. I just wonder how the dollars shake out there. One's getting Social Security and one is not. Yeah.
Did you send that email to
Everybody that
Commissioner
was on the
Strand?
call. Yeah.
Okay, sounds
Yeah,
good.
so I don't know if Mike Redlinger is online. Mike, are you on? Anyone from the city?
Anybody from the city on?
Evidently not. So that would be my question, dollars and cents wise, once they retire, if our employees are paying to Social Security, if they get both, and the City of Fargo firefighters don't, even though the multiplier is higher. I just don't know what the math is on that. Just kind of curious.
Great question. How, Mr. Hogan?
I'm curious as to whether the city, if our firefighters were to stay in the city plan, from what I understand, the city plan is underfunded. That would mean then we, the airport authority, would incur a liability to help fund the city's plan. And again, this is a permanent item on our agenda, ND PERS update. This bureaucracy that's moving at, I would love to say glacial pace, but it's not even moving that fast. We're trying to take care of the firefighters. We've got some who are retiring, some who are going to be new employees. We need to get this done. And it's purely become I think an argumentative point for the city that I don't know if they're just looking for money, but they aren't looking out for the employees. That's for darn sure.
Okay, so is there a way to find out what Mike asked, if they are underfunded, and if indeed this switch happens, would we have a greater liability?
I think we just asked the question.
Yeah, I don't know, John Cosgriff, if you're aware of any of that from your past days with the city, but my understanding is that we are in the process of filling a spot right now at our fire department. The person has been hired. They're going through the paperwork, so they will start. So that's a candidate for this new public safety plan. Or, as was suggested yesterday by the mayor and others on the call, is that the city isn't going to provide access to that public safety plan because that's a benefit they don't provide. But they did talk about offering our fire department employees going into the City of Fargo plan. And yes, the multiplier is at 2.5. ND PERS, most of our firefighters are at a 2.0 multiplier, but new hires are at 1.75. I think the difference is also that the Fargo Fire Department has a 10-year vesting. The ND PERS is a 3-year vesting. I'm just not sure if we get one employee in there, what is our financial obligation going forward as new employees come on there. I assume that there's some financial obligation for the airport authority for that pension plan that would be until the plan no longer exists. I don't know. John, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, the particulars on the pension plan would all be in the CAP, the comprehensive annual financial report. And you're likely going to find most pensions are underfunded with liabilities based on the assumptions made in there. What you will hear back from the city, though, is the liability lies with the city and the full faith and credit of the city and the taxing ability of the city to fund any of that. So that's how, you know, they deal with it. It's probably, you're rolled up into the same financial statements now, but I don't think there's a direct assigned, you know, liability, but it'd be a good question to ask.
Because we are,
It's not like,
for a number of years, we've been paying an extra fee into the pension plan, kind of as a makeup fee. I don't know what they call it. It's an actuarial adjustment each year. It was well over 100-some thousand this year just for our participation in the main pension plan. I would assume there would be some actuarial adjustments placed upon the airport authority going forward to try and make up that difference if they are in fact underfunded.
yeah, I mean, you'd have to become part of that pool and just kind of see where it falls out. But the fallback to a city or a state or, you know, any type of public entity is the ability that they can tax to meet those. And that's some of the stuff that they bring up as far as if the airport authority were ever to do some debt financing or bonding or different things like that. That's where the city's taxing authority would come into play. So,
Right.
and I think it's just, hey, help us understand this. And let them lay it out for you.
Yeah. Right now, I fully agree. It's upon the Fargo property taxpayers to fund that. Now you bring in a separate independent political subdivision into that same plan. I think the city and the airport authority would have some financial obligation that we're not aware of. So I think more information on that, a cost benefit or whatever it might be, it would be well in order, just to flesh out, I guess, if you will, what those facts are. With the 10-year vesting versus a 3-year vesting, I don't think there's much interest from our firefighters in that, but they'll have to speak for themselves. Chief Bush is on.
David, do you have any comments? Chief Bush,
Yeah.
do you have any comments on that?
You know, having done research on both the main plan and the hybrid plan that we're in right now and the public safety plan, I think our best avenue moving forward would obviously be the public safety plan. I think it's the best plan for the employees. I think it's the safest plan for the airport in general. I think there'd be pushback from union support for us joining the firefighter pension plan. I just don't see the reluctance to switch us to that plan. You know, I'm not a politician, so I don't know everything that goes on, but you know, you read Century Code and it's almost an assumption that we would be in that plan, the public safety plan I'm talking.
Okay.
And over here, that the public safety plan makes the most sense.
Okay, thank you.
For the short.
Thank you. So Stacy, will you do some checking? And maybe if you and John could talk and make sure that we answer the questions about liability, anything, you know, because John, your background really will help that discussion.
Sure, no problem.
Yep, I will do so, and I will definitely line something up to talk with John.
Sounds good, thank you. Any other comments about ND PERS? Eric, I'm hoping we'll get this off the agenda before you take over as chairman.
Me too.
Oh, we're on our way, okay. Construction update, construction and security update.
We moved this up so we can spend more time with the last one, but Terry, you want to give a quick update on the snow removal equipment building?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Good morning, everybody. Looks like things are moving along pretty well. The new FRE building site paving is complete. They're pouring curbs, perimeter curbs and gutters this week. All the miscellaneous metals that they were working on are done. The roof decking is complete, mechanical roof framing is complete. The metal wall panels are complete now. Trim is going on this week. Material for the roof for the SRE is there, and I figure they'll be done in a couple of weeks with roofing. Overhead doors are arriving December 1st. Underground plumbing is in temporary. They put the temporary lights up now that they have a deck on it, and electrical underground is complete. So kind of all the stuff that's going into the building, so we're ready to get rolling on the inside of the building. Generator's been delivered. They'll pour a pad this week, set that, and start installing it, I suppose, once they get more electrical done. The fuel island is pretty much done. Paving's complete, electrical's complete, the tanks are operational. The existing remodel foundations are done, backfilling's complete. They're setting steel right now. Underground mechanical's complete, underground electrical's complete. I wish we would have had a tour of the equipment bay before they put in the new lighting, because they got the new lighting in the garage and the equipment bay done. And I understand it's quite a difference. Don't need a flashlight to check the oil anymore.
No, we had to buy sunglasses. for everybody.
Yeah, I was there before it was in, so that's great.
Those LED lights are amazing, and when you look at how they're spaced, it's crazy how they work. But so they're setting in the new gear and panels right now, and they started re-roofing last week. So that's about it.
Sounds good. Any questions, Mike?
Yeah, what's the status on the overhead crane?
I don't know what you're talking. What are you talking about, Mike?
Well, isn't there a crane that we're buying overhead
That's separate from Terry, so
Yeah.
it's ordered.
Yeah,
as part of the equipment? I know.
It's ordered, yep.
yeah, that was an owner provided. Yeah, correct.
There, no.
Jeff Klein, do you have anything on cargo? Thanks, Terry.
Yeah, thanks.
The only thing I have is construction's done for the year, so.
All right. So can you talk a little bit about the project that we have underway that we coordinated with the FAA for, like, late 2020, early 2021 projects, such as the environmental assessment that's underway, and then the some of the projects that we'll be looking at doing next year, obviously completing the snow removal equipment building and the cargo apron, but possibly starting the design of the reconstruction of the west terminal apron here by the terminal?
Sure. So when the airport authority does a project on the airfield, typically it's funded through the FAA's AIP program. And one of the requirements of receiving that grant is for the airport to go through some environmental work to make sure the project doesn't have any significant impacts on the environment. And it could be as simple as what is called a simple written record, or it could move up to a documented CADX, or it could turn into a environmental assessment. So oftentimes what happens is, well, I should take that back. Anytime a project is done on the airfield, it isn't necessarily part of the AIP funding program. Anytime a project is done on the airfield, the FAA requires this environmental work. So, as an example, if somebody puts up a T hangar in the North GA, there still needs to be this environmental documentation. So, with that in mind, so say someone comes forward to the airport authority and wants to build a T hangar up by Jet Center. They have to go through some environmental work, but it doesn't happen overnight because for a CADX document, there's wetland delineation work that needs to be done. It's actual field work. And then there's also archaeological surveys that need to be done that the FAA requires. And all of this just takes time. So if someone comes forward and says, I want to build a hangar, it's just push back because this approval process, could be, 4, 5, 6 months to get approval on. So what we have been in discussions with the FAA on is to do all this field work for high priority areas ahead of time. Wetland delineation, the archaeological surveys for the jet center area. And then there's also a T-hangar development down by the military taxiway. And then also the area around the terminal building for a future terminal expansion, apron expansion. Get all of that work right out of the way. So what we had done, me not to just gone forward to do the all of this field work this past October. So it's all completed right now. So now that that's done, we'll soon be coming forward to the airport authority with a proposal and kind of a roadmap on, okay, if this project comes up, what is it going to take to complete this CapEx document? But at least the field work is done, which is, the real time-consuming part of the process. So.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
And if the airport authority wants, I can forward you a map of the areas that we had addressed this fall.
Yeah. What this will do is if someone comes to us today and wants to build a hangar somewhere, they'll be able to start in the spring. We don't have to wait until fall or until that stuff
Right.
is done.
What, the Amazon area? Or, I'm sorry, excuse me, the area over on the east side of the runway.
Over here?
Yep.
Yeah, Jeff, you did the area to the east of Bravo Taxiway by that NDSU test plot out there? Over by the ASOS?
We did, yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
All areas that could be developed on that map were reviewed.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah. Jeff, can you give us from the start in the spring to completion, what the length of time is before the UPS ramp will be completed? So if for instance, we get an early spring, you can start pouring concrete early. What's the earliest you think the UPS ramp will be done?
Well, I know if I asked Northern Improvement, they're going to say September 3rd. It really is hard to say, Mike, to be honest with you. My gut feel just tells me that they'll be done earlier, but
Well,
who knows,
just
depending
wondering-
on spring weather and summer weather, that kind of thing. So,
Of course, it's all weather dependent. I'm just wondering how many days of work do they have? And if they start at the end of March versus 1st of June. I don't need a complete date, but I'm just wondering, is it
okay.
3 months
I
and
see what
2
you're
weeks of
saying.
work?
I would say it's 3 months worth of work.
Okay.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you for your good work, guys. Last thing on the agenda is continue the discussion regarding the ADK report and associated airport employee job description ratings. It looks like in the minutes, because I was not present, the job descriptions were approved. So next, and I know that Vice Chairman Lind and I have reviewed the executive director DBMs. Do we need to approve the recommendations for the DBMs that you were responsible for and that we reviewed too?
Sure. I mean, you can do that one position at a time if you want.
Okay,
And what will happen is your action today, then the DBMs and whatever you do for pay grades, that will be combined with the job descriptions that were approved at the last meeting and sent to the PEC airport PEC for review
okay.
and their concurrence.
Let's open it up for discussion. All of you have a copy of where the office manager, airport operations specialist, the airport operations supervisor, and assistant director, where their new DBMs are. Is there any question about any of those? So we could either entertain a motion to approve each one of those individually, or those 4 positions as a group.
Tammy, and we had this discussion, and
Yeah,
it just seems that the process is a little bit inverted here.
I know.
That I would want the expertise of the PEC making recommendation on those to the board.
Okay.
And it, you know,
Well,
that's the expert board. But if this is the way it has to go, I guess it's the way it has to go. I don't know what. Well, I guess it would come back if the PEC looked at it and came up with a different rating on it, I suppose.
Well, because the PEC has a final say, and I guess
Yeah, I know that.
so. If we say that we support this, I mean, we probably don't even have to do that, but for those at least 4 positions. So I know it seems backwards, but that's the way the MOU and the PEC guidelines were given.
Okay.
I read your comments. Yeah, I think it's micromanagement and it's backwards, but we're trying to follow what was negotiated and what was preferred by the city.
Everything.
I understand they're trying to figure out a way to work it. I just,
Yeah.
you know, you have to put your faith in the consistency and the application of the algorithms by the PEC in the system as a whole. The system really doesn't work a position, you know, if you just pull one position out and try and do it, you really want to look at it sort of globally as how they apply it. And,
Well, I
so
think
they're in a good position to do it. It just seems weird that we would make a recommendation and then say, yeah, thanks for the recommendation, but here's where we're going.
yeah.
I don't disagree with you at all, John. But Stacy's listening too, because I think there's probably an amendment coming forth for the MOU to clarify this process. My reading indicates that if what we're proposing is within the pay plan, it's final. But we did that with the firefighters, and they still refused and sent it to the PEC, even though everything that was presented and approved by the board was within the pay plan. So, if you,
And that might be part of the, you know, I wasn't party to the MOU, but maybe that was one of the contentious areas. It seems that they were trying to find some other solution to it, and the PEC being the sort of the joint, it's a joint board between the city and the airport authority, so they're there to slug it out and come up with the final decision, I guess.
so I
And
can,
John, you're correct. I mean, it was sort of a way to remove the city commission to be the final determining entity as to salaries, and to put together a joint body to make that final determination. I will say, I mean, we were in mediation. I mean, Rick, you were there, I don't know, 40 some hours over the course of how many weeks. I do think in going through it and watching the airport PEC go through the first round that the city and the airport authority probably should revisit the airport PEC part of the MOU so it can be clarified better. I guess in mediation, the point was to actually get the parties to agree to a separate PEC for the airport authority.
And John and Stacy, I don't know if you remember this, but the chairman of the PEC specifically asked Sean to do this for the first 4 positions, and asked Eric and I to do his. Because if you probably hadn't attended any of those meetings, but it was very painful to go through square by square for the firefighters. And that's why Jane said, let's see if Sean could do the first, the 4 of them, and then Vice Chairman Lind and I would do the last one. So that was requested by them.
Okay.
Yep, I did attend that meeting and watched the airport PEC go through that process, which was,
Couple meetings, yes.
So let me give you a
And then I would,
Okay, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Stacy.
I just concur with Sean in that I know the city came in and wanted every position to go through the airport PEC, but the MOU, if there is one thing that's clear, it's that if the position falls within the city's pay scale, that's not something that the airport PEC would look at all.
Okay. And so of the
Okay.
4,
So I'll just give you a recap here of what we've done. The first one on the grid that you received is Airport Office Manager. This position is currently Principal Office Associate. It has a DBM score of 272. I reevaluated the position in conjunction with the employee, a little oversight from Darren. The current pay grade is grade 11. The reassessment of that position and the retitling of that position to Airport Office Manager, or you can call it Executive Assistant, whichever you desire, but it was approved at the last meeting as Airport Office Manager. The new DBM score is 321 as we reevaluate the position with a pay grade of 14. Airport Operations Specialist, the current score is a 283 on the DBM. The revised score is 301. That goes from a pay grade 12 to a pay grade grade 13. Airport Operations Supervisor for the air side and the land side. The current score is 290. The revised score for DBM is 353, which moves it from a grade 12 to a grade 15. The Airport Assistant Director has a current score of 428 on the DBM, which is a pay grade 18. The revised DBM score is a 526, which puts it in a grade 20. And the final one, the Airport Executive Director, is up to the board. I'm not involved in that review. So I would recommend to you that you would approve Airport Office Manager, grade 14, Airport Operations Specialist, grade 13, Airport Operations Supervisors, airside and landside, there's 2 people, and the Airport Assistant at grade 15, and the Airport Assistant Director at grade 20.
because those fall within this, so they should not have to go to the PEC.
They should not, but if you send it down there, they'll reject it and send it to the PEC. That's the problem.
So if we send it to the city of Fargo, you're saying the city will reject it?
That's what they did with the firefighters.
That's
and
what they
this
did with the
isn't any different,
firefighters, that's
so-
right. And they were all within range.
And Mr. Reglinger agreed when the firefighters were approved at this meeting, and then it was reverted back. No, it's got to go to the PEC. So based on past experience, that would be my guess. You can try, but
Well, you know what,
Madam
Rick?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would move to approve the pay grades as revised by the executive director and forward them to the city for concurrent grading or current grading,
Okay,
understanding that they may kick it back to the PEC.
and these are effective, if I could add, January 1st, 2021 was the
Agreed, yes.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, let's open it up for discussion. Mike?
I have a question for legal counsel. You just made the statement, Stacy, that even though the MOU is quite clear that if they fall within the grade, they don't need to go to the PEC. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. I don't have it right in front of me. The very first part of that the language for the PUC, at page 5, request for the MAA for compensation outside of the city plan, utilizing a basis for evaluation and decision making. So it's clear that anything within the city plan doesn't have to go to the PEC. And I thought there was an agreement with the city after the last round on this. I can certainly circle back with Eric.
So in other words, when the city kicked back the firefighters, there was an agreement after that not to do that. Is that correct?
That was my understanding after the airport PEC went through that first round.
Okay.
We also have to do auto and sell.
Yep.
for Darren.
Thank you.
For all of them.
Darren.
Darren.
Could you help me here? Sean, these positions have been assigned a DBM rating, and you're recommending change from it?
That is correct. I was told to review and revise the DBMs as necessary, so where appropriate, myself and Darren did that with those 4 positions, and that's what we came up with per Jane at the Airport PEC committee. That's what we did back in October.
Okay, yeah, and maybe my interpretation, I just go back to the city BEC, but every position was assigned a DBM rating across the city structure. And so if you put together a job description and it was for an office manager 1, and all the duties fell within that position, you know, as long as it was budgeted, came in, that position then followed that DBM and went through the step system of the pay grade. The PEC came into play when now you've got an office manager 1 and you're reassigning additional duties and responsibilities, and that's when it would go back to the PEC. So I'm wondering if we're not talking a little bit different there. The clarification would be around whether a position existed in the city or it's a new position and there's new duties assigned to it. And that's why I say the system has to work as a whole. Is that, I'm not saying that supervisors would do this, but you have a number of tasks that have to be performed across the operations of the airport. And so if you're reassigning an office manager or airside operations or whatever, different and new duties, where are they coming from? And does that change any other DBM ratings?
When was the last time we were updated?
A supervisor can't assign all of their work to a lower graded employee and then ask for that employee's DBM rating to be raised while keeping his or her own rating.
John, I think they hadn't been, a lot of the job descriptions had not been updated for 10 years. So it was natural over that 10 years with the growth of the airport that the duties of the individuals, this was my understanding. And I think one was in 2015, some were in 2010. So it's not just that they, over 1 year, had more responsibilities because someone was shifting something to them. It's been over 10 years.
Yeah, and completely understand that, but you might want to clarify with them when they say within the, if a job is a job that you're proposing or have in place fits the job description and within a banded position already, there's no change. But
No, and these were, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, what the city's trying to avoid is to, have this infinite number of job positions, because descriptions, because everybody's varies a little bit. And so there's somewhat of a universal make it fit, but when there are major changes to the duties that are assigned to that position, you can, look and say, well, could this be a 1 or a 2, or how could it change, and does it fit in the job description? If it doesn't, it truly is a new one. That's to me when it goes through the PEC.
It's, Sean? Otherwise, there is a motion on the floor, isn't there?
If I could interject. So just going back into my notes here, to me the motion was to send these to the city for acceptance or rejection and go to the PEC, airport PEC. In reading the MOU, that's not the manner in which the parties contemplated this, is that the airport authority has their recommendations that goes directly to the airport PEC. And then they make their decision, that is final and goes to the city.
That was my understanding too. So whoever made, would somebody like to change the motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I would then amend and state that acceptance of the upgraded pay grades for the 4 positions and move it directly to the PEC for review.
Would you have, would you mind adding a friendly amendment to include the the assistant executive director maintain or review the auto and telephone?
With respect to the any bonus or additional dollars, we can do that, but I think the pay grade first would be the first part.
Okay.
And based on what Sean was told by the head of the PEC, the airport PEC, that Sean do this, get it current.
Yep.
It wasn't a suggestion. She asked Sean to do this,
yeah.
and he did it. We're sending it back to them now, and so but that's part A of the process.
Would somebody like to second the?
Are you contemplating other, automobile allowance, telephone allowance on top of the DBM rating? Is that?
It's already in place.
It's already in place.
And it's different for Darren's position than mine. A number of years ago, the Airport Authority approved a $400 a month auto allowance and a $200 a month cell allowance. That is still in position for the Airport Assistant Director position. In answer to your other question, John, in terms of our job classifications, our job descriptions, if you will, the airport positions are specific and are revised to the airport. So if you take an Equipment Operator 3, you take the Airport Operations Specialist, which is unique. There's no one else in the city that has that. If you take the Airport Operations Supervisor for airside and landside, those are unique. Nobody else has that. But our Equipment Operator 3 positions, so forth, are unique to the airport. And there are airport items in there, such as Part 139. There's security things that aren't in the ones for Public Works or mains and hydrants or the other departments. So that was done probably back in 2009 or 2010, where they did drill down to a little bit more specific in terms of our job classifications.
And that would be appropriate then that the PEC would weigh in on that.
Would somebody like to make a second to the amendment, and then we'll vote on the amendment and then vote on the amended motion?
I'll second the amendment to send it to the PEC.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded on the amendment to send it to the PEC, not to the City of Fargo. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now the amendment as a whole is to accept accept the revised DBMs as presented and send it to the PEC for approval or revision. Is that correct? Did I state that correctly?
That's correct. So
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you, guys. The last position is for the Airport Executive Director. Vice Chairman Lind and I went through the evaluation system, and like some of the other positions, this position is unique to. It's different, and it doesn't really fall in the same categories as other city positions. However, we did the best we could to make it work. And after we looked at the qualifications, decisions, problem solving, relationships, effort, hazards, and environment, we came up to, he is right now at 621, which is grade level 25, and I came up with 801, which is a grade level 27. And the ADK studies, the salary that falls under the ADK study, and they have no This is competitive throughout the United States. This is the data from the research. That came up to a level 28. Oh, it's 27? Okay. So it looks like the grade level 27 is where we fell, as well as where, because 801 is I want to double check and make sure. Any comments about that?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
understanding that there is a difference in grade level from his current grade to G27
Yep.
with the revised rating and score. One of the additional things was I know that in a prior pay adjustment for Sean, they basically took away the phone privilege that we had in place and his vehicle. I would like those reinstated. And then also a consideration, and then I know this will go to the PVC, for a separate bonus structure that should be in place for our ability to retain key employees.
I think that's, I need to restate, the 801 is at a level 26. And the 80K study is, would be an 818 at a level 27. So there's a little bit of a difference. So I wanted to make sure I corrected that. But Rick, I do agree. I think when the city, it is a fact that when the city gave him, the executive director, the extra funds, they took away almost the equal amount in benefits from auto and telephone. So I agree, that's something, when you look at the 80K study, it's very, it's almost without a doubt that the executive directors have much better auto and cell coverage than our executive director has right now, because the city took it away. But they gave him additional funds, but again, it was almost a wash.
And to be clear, they didn't give him additional funds. That was a bargaining chip the city was using at the time, and Sean did not want to be part of that bargaining while we were working with other employees and dealing with the MOU, and I give him credit for that.
I agree.
You know, I think we're building benefits into pay scale now, which might
No.
get confusing.
Okay.
My understanding with the car allowance is simply it's the paying entity decision is that if Sean's mileage that he's turning in is such that it's more economical for them to provide a car, they would provide a car. Phones now are, getting very difficult because you can't sort of bifurcate the phone. But if Sean's required to be available 24/7 and cell phones widely used, it would be a question of providing the phone, whichever is more economical to the entity. You do an allowance or you pay for it. So I'm not sure, Rick, I don't know if we can combine the car and the phone as part of the DBM stuff or the PEC, what you can consider that. This is a hybrid PEC, so maybe it can.
Well, I think the point was that, and I totally understand what you're saying, John, is that the city of Fargo had offered Sean a phone and he did not accept that. So what they did was then just cut his allowance. And we didn't combine them, but when you take a look at what they did for the salary is they basically gave him the higher salary and took the other away. So whether we want to admit that they shouldn't be together or not, that's what the city had done.
Yeah, I'm not arguing what they did there. I'm just not sure that the PEC would get even more complex if they started putting benefits alongside the pay scales.
Well, one of the things that the PEC also said, and that we should look at bonus structures as well, because when you look at the study, not only positions include vehicles, but some of the positions include bonuses. And the PEC even said, if that's something that we should consider, bring it forward. So it's kind of and Rick, chime in if I'm wrong of that.
No, that was correct. Again, I think the biggest thing is this is about retaining key employees.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think the PEC can look at a bonus structure, and again, I kind of see the car and the phone as a separate, to me, providing a car and a phone should not be an incentive to the position anymore, because with IRS ruling, that if you're using the car for personal use, you have to, pay taxes on that, and that's not, or it somehow has to then be kicked back as a 1099 as additional benefit. But, that's where I would say it would be the employing entity looking and saying, look, we're paying $1,000 a month in mileage. If we lease a vehicle for them, it's going to be $500 a month, and that's a better deal, and you're going to do that, and have the employee track the mileage and everything.
Well, but I think one of the things that Rick brought up is this is about retaining, and I'm looking at all the salary or the 80K study, because we asked them to have the additional monetary benefits in there. And when you look at this, the ranges, they have bonuses, but also, and I know you've seen this, monthly allowances from $1,500, $750, $1,000. So it's about being competitive. And I think that's where currently, what did they have yours at? Your car allowance at?
Now,
Yeah.
$39 a pay period or something, $900 a year.
$900 a year. And it had been what?
400
It had been 400
per month.
per month. So that's quite a difference.
Well, and again, to me and Sean, that would go to the $39 a month. Obviously, that's not requiring you to drive 20,000 miles a month. It's for the assigned duties where they see driving, or where I'm not familiar enough with what they're trying to cover in that allowance. But any other board that I would sit on, if we're looking at pay scales, whether you provide company vehicles or not, just goes back to what's the least expensive for the entity. And when you get to the point where you're paying more in mileage than it would be to provide a car, then you just simply provide the car.
Well, John, Commissioner Cosgrove, or Board Member Cosgrove, I think the $39 or $40 a month is an insult. Maybe I could see $40 a day, more realistic. It's just an insult.
Well, and Rick, I don't know, and Sean, you can tell me, I don't know what your requirement is driving on the job. To and from the job is always the employee's cost. And I'm not familiar enough with, Sean, your daily activity to how many miles a day you're driving for airport business.
I think, John, this is not a typical government entity. I've worked for the state. I've worked for, different governmental entities. This is does not fit that little hole. And in order to be competitive, the $39, $40 a month, if we were to hire somebody, if we were to hire a new executive director, we're not going to get by with less than $500 a month. And so that's what it comes down to. Yes, it comes down to what he drives, but it's not a typical, when I worked for the governor of Arizona, yes, I did mileage. That is the government way of doing everything. Here, because of the executive director position is a competitive position in a private marketplace, it's a little bit different. Any comments?
Well, I'm getting confused now because the other argument is that we are a political subdivision, we are a government entity, and now we're going to argue we aren't.
No, I didn't say that. I know we are a political subdivision. But it's when deregulation happened, it totally changed the workings of airports, and that's where the airports are now more of a, even though they're a quasi-governmental entity, they are also looked at and viewed as a business entity because of the way we have to run the operations. Mike?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I guess, Sean, on any given day, when you use your vehicle and you're going around the airport, the perimeter of the airport is how many miles around
Oh, golly.
from external entry points?
Gosh, you guys would know, Darren. I don't know, is it 5, I suppose, once we get around? 5.5, 6?
8.
More?
7, 8.
Yeah, between 7 and 8 miles. I generally, if I'm here every day, get the mail, so you get the post office trip. Been doing most of the deposits, so 1, 2, 3 a week of that. You know, you're looking well over, 4,000 to 5,000 miles a year minimum.
And that's not a car either. It has to be a four-wheel drive vehicle because you need to be accessible and have access to the facility in 90-degree beautiful weather and 30 below in a blizzard. So it rules out a car, and it is a large SUV or pickup that is needed. And so I guess we're killing the conversation over what is appropriate. We need to set a number for him and work through that, understanding it has to be a larger SUV type vehicle with four-wheel drive capability so he has access to the facility.
I don't want a vehicle.
Unless one of us is willing to go pick him up.
No, I
And he
don't.
doesn't-
And Rick, I'm not arguing that. I think it just has to be, like I said, from my standpoint, I don't know what the needs are. I think you start complicating your pay scale when you do things like this. Sean, I don't know now, when you had the allowance, did you get a 1099 for personal mileage, or how'd you track that?
No. No, there was just the allowance comes, and there was no tracking or anything of that nature.
And are there, pool vehicles at the airport, or are there vehicles you could use for those duties that wouldn't require you to use your own?
Possibly.
So to me, that's I think we have enough trouble right now just figuring out the DBMs and everything else. I think that's a separate discussion, but.
Mike?
In keeping with
Madam Chair, if
John,
we're going to hand this off to the PEC, we need to have them aware of what our concerns are and what additional benefits we're talking about.
I think that's correct. And maybe just to make them aware, like you said, Rick. Mike?
yeah, in keeping with John's comment there, I'd like to figure out what would a car, either leased or purchased, cost us for the airport authority, and use that as the basic reference. I mean, if it's $250 a month to lease a vehicle, or $400, that would be a starting point, I believe.
I don't believe there is a motion on the floor yet. So very good discussion, John. I love your perspective. because I think that means once we work on a decision, whether it's, we're all happy or not, at least we are having good discussion about it, because I think that's what we want. And we took an oath to make sure that we would, make sure that we would keep the airport at the Municipal Airport Authority. That's who we made the oath to. So, and I can tell all of us are very focused on that. So, and so the last thing we're talking about is the executive director, and moving him to recommending to the PEC that he goes to a level 26 or 27 with additional information about and knowledge about the automobile and telephone allowance.
So do you want to make that separate? Do you want to make the DBM, just move the DBM as one piece to the PEC?
You know
or
what?
do you want to do the whole thing?
Rick, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think if we did the DBM and the DBM and the scale and made them aware of the discussion, that the PEC could address that, because I know that they've talked about more than just compensation.
Yes, I think that'd be appropriate.
Okay.
I would move that we accept the review committee's grading to G27 for the executive director, with the understanding that as it goes to the PEC, there's additional conversations about phone and auto allowance for the executive director, and the possibility for a bonus structure.
Okay.
I will agree to that and second his motion.
It's been moved and seconded, the motion as stated, that we move the executive director to grade level 27 and informing the PEC about conversations regarding telephone and automobile reimbursement, as well as a possibility of a bonus. Is there any further discussion, or is there any discussion?
No discussion.
Okay. I think we are going to do a roll call vote on this. Roll call vote.
Haugen,
Aye.
Engen,
Aye.
Cosgriff,
Aye.
Lind,
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye. Any other further business to come before the airport authority? Wait, do I have one more?
A couple of items. So we're scheduled to meet December 8th and December 22nd, the second and fourth Tuesday. I guess
Okay.
depending on the actions of the PEC or any urgent information, we may just have one meeting in December. I guess we'll see what the desire of the board is. I think we can keep them scheduled for now, and then
Yep.
if we don't have enough agenda material to talk about, we can just cancel.
And just to let you know that when we, Jane, the PEC chair, and she got the minutes, and she asked me last week after the minutes if she should schedule another PEC meeting, and I said yes. So she is already aware, and I bet you after this meeting she'll probably put it into motion. I am not sure though if she'll be able to get everybody by the 4th of December. So really, I guess the PEC is the final decision maker anyway. So we'll keep them scheduled, and if we need to, if we don't have any business, then we will cancel as needed.
You saw the announcement by Allegiant. We were one of a few airports in the country that had some additional service added. They will fly, or I should say return to St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Tampa starting February 11th, ending service as of right now, April 11th. They'll fly, I think it's Thursday, Sunday schedule. So it's good to see Tampa St. Pete come back to our markets of opportunity for our passengers. We had the Blue Angel pre-show visit last week. It was done virtually, so they're still planning on being here the end of July for a couple of great days of the air show. The committee co-chair Haugen is part of that air show committee, as you know, and got a good group of people together to try and put this air show together, not knowing what COVID may bring us, but I think we'll be okay by July, hopefully. So we're getting ready for that. As you know, the lead Blue Angels from Fargo, Brian Kesserling, Fargo South grad, Concordia grad. So it'd be good for him to be here for his home show. October traffic, we were down around 51% as compared to October of 2019. Still trending significantly better than the rest of the country. So we're doing pretty well there. And the final thing, every airport has to go through a Part 139 inspection every year. That's the complete review and inspection of the airfield, all of the training records for fuelers, anyone who drives on the airfield, firefighter records and so forth. Well, airports this year are experiencing a little bit different process in that it was done virtually. So Kurt Vanyo is the cert inspector that we work with. Darren and Jordan and Chief Bush and our airfield staff work very closely with him. And basically he's completed that inspection and he's happy to report that we've got a clean bill of health. That's a big kudos to Darren and Jordan and Chief Bush and our airfield staff, Henry and the folks that keep the airfield up in top-notch order. Another comment on here for Chief Bush is that he will offer that Chief Bush's records are some of the best ARF records I've seen in a long while.
Wow.
Nice job.
That's awesome.
So Chief Bush, once again, you have exceeded the expectations of what the FAA sees. And I think at one time, they talked about even trying to duplicate what you do in terms of your record keeping at all of the airports that the FAA works with in terms of certifications. So that's good to report. The airfield is in good shape, and what we're doing here is meeting or exceeding the FAA expectations. That's all I have.
I got one thing. I received a comment from a North Side resident who drives on 19th Avenue and requested I pass along how happy they are to see Rick's work with the dilapidated structure on the south side of the
Good.
airport has gone. So just report that the citizenry has noticed that.
It's awesome.
That's cleaned up.
It only took 5 years.
Well, actually, I spent a considerable amount of time going over the issues and what happened, and they said, "Oh my, I didn't realize it was that complex."
that complicated.
Well, the wood fence was taken down, which
Showed
separated
every-
our property from the others, and that wood fence is known as the Tom Williams fence. Tom was a former Airport Authority member years ago, and he had Joe Palmer called the courier, and they put up a fence to block the view. So that fence disappeared as well. So yeah, it looks a lot different
looks-
down there.
yeah,
How come that fuel
it's great.
tank is still there, though? There's still a fuel tank there.
What's that?
There's still a fuel tank there.
I think actually there's some fuel in those.
Oh,
and
okay.
so, Jurdal would not take those.
That's what a match is for. But anyway.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you guys. Thank you all for being here today. And like I said, the discussion was really good, and I think we're making some great headway. And I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Be safe. Meeting adjourned.